Congratulations. Good morning. Joining us on the dais now, head coach Don Staley from South Carolina. We will take questions for Coach right now. We'll start down here in the front. Brent, questions?
Right here.
That's fine, right there.
Hi,
Sorry.
Don. It's Lindsay Jones from USA Today. What did it mean to your program when Asia decided to commit to South Carolina? I was wondering if you could maybe take us back through the recruitment of her as kind of the #1 player in the country and just what it meant for you guys when she picked you over some of the other kind of big dog programs.
I think anytime that you have the best player in the country in your backyard, I think it brings credibility because, I don't know if we'll ever get another #1 player in the country if she were not from our area, and the amount of time that it went into recruiting her family. It was quite easy to do it because we had access to all of those people, and they watched our program grow from the ground up. And we provided some things that other top programs in the country were providing to their top recruits. But it meant a great deal from a attendance standpoint, where our fans get a chance to, come and watch her grow up. She's a family person, so it gave her an opportunity to play in front of her family. But it also allowed us to branch out and recruit some other players nationally, because if she's considering the University of South Carolina, other ones may follow suit, because back then it wasn't a very popular thing to choose our school, because we hadn't won we hadn't been to the Final Four. We hadn't, I don't know if we won a SEC. We won one at that point. So it meant that she gave us a little credibility to say that we're on the rise.
Question here in the front.
Good morning, Coach. Adam Minichino from the Commercial Dispatch in Columbus. Diana's notes highlight the raised level of play for Asia, for Allisha, and for Kayla. What did you talk to your players about after Elena went out with the injury, and how have you seen them respond with the increased production?
Well, I didn't necessarily talk to the three of them. I talked to our team, and when you have a player go down that has contributed in the way that Elena has contributed for us, it's a blow, and you feel it from an emotional standpoint, and you have to take it, head on in that moment. And when we found out, we told our team, and we just moved forward. It's much like, if a player gets injured during a practice, we immediately take the rest of the team down the other end, and we continue practice. And then I'll go back over and check on the injured player. But you can't show your players any sign of weakness, or, you're less confident in us moving forward. So I think you have to just stay confident. And I've always preached to our players that you can't get too high with the highs or too low with the lows. You got to find a way to maintain. And I just thought if you're maintaining, you can't, you can only go up for me. You can only go up. And I thought our players, took our lead as far as our coaching staff, and, felt like, we had enough in the room to accomplish all of our goals still, with the injury.
Question here, Michelle.
John, Allisha Gray was big for you guys last night. Can you just talk about what she does for you, what you need her to do for you?
I mean, Allisha Gray's been the most consistent player, probably of, all of our players. And she's we call her the silent assassin. She doesn't say much, and she lets her play speak for itself. And she's been doing that time and time again. She's never complained about, what she gives up on a defensive end, as far as having to play, much taller, stronger post players. She just does it. She just goes about her job, and she does it in a way that, would make any coach proud. I wish I had, 2 or 3 or 4 more Allisha Grays. And if we did, I'd probably feel a little bit more confident going into, a national championship game.
Question in the front, Jury.
Hi, Don. Jerry Longman with the New York Times. Connecticut and Tennessee have won, I think, 19 titles between them and given women's basketball, great visibility and legitimacy in a groundbreaking way. But what happened last night? Do you think that's necessary for the evolution of the game with what Mississippi State did to let other teams know, hey, it's possible on the biggest stage that maybe we can do it too?
Yeah, I think it's good for the game. It's good to shake it up a little bit. I think more people are going to start watching it just because. I think what it does is it gives hope to all of us. All of us that we're not in that number of 19 national championships. We're just vying to get one, and then hopefully we can build off that. But certainly I think it breathes a little a light into women's basketball, knowing that it's not the same old UConn. And although it's been an incredible ride, it's been incredible to watch. It's been a beautiful thing to watch, but it was great. I mean, it's great to know that somebody else is going to win a national championship, and it's not the same old, like the Velcro. You just tear the Velcro off, stick Connecticut back up. I think it's different. It's a nice little flavor to it.
Question in front, Doug.
Hey, Don, Doug Feinberg, the AP. Is it make it easier for you guys preparing for tomorrow that it's an SEC battle with a team you played twice already, and things change, obviously, what they do, but your scouting report, your players already know them well, and it makes it easier than playing a team that you haven't played as much?
It does make it easier, but it also, you can't, for what Mississippi State has done over the past 5 games, they're much different than they were, that 6th game in which we played them in the SEC tournament championship. The intangible part of it is it's really hard to get our players to focus in on it. They're playing at an all-time high. They're playing with, Morgan Williams is playing some of the best basketball I've ever seen play in a player. You can't go into the game thinking you can just do the same old things. You got to give her different looks. You got to, make sure that she's not getting hot and into a groove. But as far as player personnel, we know them. We know them extremely well, and it's although you have to prepare for both of them, and we are prepared for both of them, we didn't have to prepare as much as opponent that we haven't seen all season.
Question back here in the aisle.
Matt Connolly with the state. Dawn, you had played Mississippi State twice and obviously played UConn as well. Were you surprised? I think the country was pretty surprised to see the result. Were you surprised by what happened last night?
I wasn't surprised because we've played them, and I've watched UConn over the past couple of years, and I think Vic has the personnel to disrupt. And he did it in a way, over a 40-minute period, which is extremely hard to stay engaged that long against a UConn team that's just a machine as far as what they're able to do offensively. I just thought they had the bigs to give them a little trouble, and they used their bigs in the right way on both sides of the ball. I think UConn had a bad day. But watching the game, Mississippi State had a lot to do with it.
Question here in the front.
Dawn, when you took over at South Carolina, Tennessee was still the power of the SEC and had been for decades. At that time, did you have in your mind like, hey, this is where I want to get to be that kind of power in the league? And then can you talk about the fact now that, you and Mississippi State are here in a national championship game and have kind of replaced, if you will, the power structure in the SEC?
Well, here's how I went for my coaching career. When I was at Temple for 8 years. We would get to the NCAA tournament, the first round, possibly the second round, and then we've always, lost in that first and second round, and that was really frustrating. And I thought at that time, 9 years ago, that we took Temple as far as we could take it with the players that we could get to recruit and come to Temple. Because at tournament time, we always got out-talented. We outplayed people, but they out-talented us. And I, as a coach, wanted to be a part of what's happening right now. And I just thought that making a coaching move to a bigger conference would allow our coaching staff to live out some dreams that we've wanted as coaches, and that's to win a national championship. South Carolina opened up, and it was twofold. One, personally, my parents are from South Carolina. They were born there. And then professionally, it's the platform that we needed to compete and win for national championships. We don't know that it's always going to work out that way, but I knew that we had the platform. I didn't know that, Asia Wilson was in our backyard. I didn't know Lisa Welch was in our backyard, nor did I know Tiffany Mitchell, but, it all came together quite nicely. And the fact that we had some of the top players in the country, in our state, and in the surrounding areas, made this dream come true a little bit quicker. South Carolina, the SEC, allowed us to be in this position, and for 2 SEC teams to compete for a national championship is quite incredible. Even just looking at Vic and what he's done with Mississippi State in just a short period of time, I think a lot of people don't really understand what goes into coaching young people these days, and some people don't understand what young people have to do to realize their dreams, and sometimes you got to make hard calls, and sometimes you got to, sometimes you got to gain by losing, and all that happens, but it's these moments that make you forget about, those times and really appreciate the good times and what it took to get here.
Question in the back corner.
How's it going, Coach Staley? My name is Jack Freifeld. I'm with NCAA.com. The first question I had, last night as I was leaving, I saw you and some of the coaching staff were walking by the Mississippi State locker room. I'm just curious if you can tell me a little bit about, as a coach, what you saw in that locker room. I think a lot of the things that your team is going through can be mirrored by Mississippi State. And secondly, if you can, pardon the self-serving nature, I'm curious if you've talked with Bianca yet about that matchup at the lead guard spot, maybe some of the things she might need to do come Sunday night.
Yeah, we did walk by, and I looked in the locker room and, their locker room, and I just saw them very, very happy, for accomplishing something that, most people didn't think could get done. And I actually wanted to get some eye contact from somebody just to say congratulations, because, you work so hard, and you want to make sure that, you give credit where credit is due. I wanted to, congratulate Vic. I did text him to let, just to congratulate him on winning. And I'm a dream merchant for young people. And, one of their dreams was to come true. They're not my kids, but it's a dream that had been realized by, young people. So I wanted to kind of get eye contact with them to just to say congratulations, but also wanted to let them have their moment. As far as the matchup, with Morgan William, we had film today, so we talked a little bit about it, and, Bianca knows what she has to do. She has to really stay engaged and make it difficult. Morgan Williams is going to make shots. She's going to make plays. It is how she's making those plays. If we can decrease the amount of times that those plays are easy plays, I think it works in our favor. But if she's in a groove and she's playing as she's played over the past 5 games, it's going to be a long night for us.
Question here from Adam.
In Columbia, you really praised Kayla's effort defensively, even though she didn't have a great offensive game. She really did a good job on Vivian's. Kind of piggybacking off of that last question, with Allisha, with Kleiny, with Kayla, it seems like you have a lot of good matchups. How do you like your matchups in terms of trying to make things difficult for not only Victoria or Morgan, but several of their position players?
I mean, we feel good about our matchups. I think, what you have to kind of plan for, and you don't want to plan for it, but you do. It's foul trouble. If something, if Asia Wilson gets herself into a little foul trouble, that hurts. But we've been there before, but not against a team in which is as big as Mississippi State. So we got to find a way to keep Asia on the floor. Everybody else, I think, is, puts us in a position to match up fairly well. Is when you take Asia Wilson out of the equation, you're left with a freshman post player in Kiki Harrigan, and that's just probably too big of a stage for us to rely on her to play heavy minutes. But everybody else, I think we got enough to match up fairly well with them.
Question here on the aisle.
Yes, Rick Cleveland with Mississippi Today. You've watched Tiara McCowan the last 2 years. Can you talk about what you've seen in the progression of her game?
I actually had the opportunity to work with her with USA Basketball. She was on our U18 team, and to see her 3 years ago versus today, and every time I see her, I always, I marvel and I tell her, that she looks great, she's playing well. I mean, they've done a tremendous job, just from her physique to her, she's strong mentally. She's playing with a high level of confidence, and she's becoming, somewhat of a go-to player down there in the paint, and she's delivering for them. So I'm very happy. I'm very happy that, she's taking it a lot more seriously, because she'll have a long, fruitful career playing basketball.
Question from Mel.
Mel Greenberg. Dawn, when you got to Temple, as much as you talked about South Carolina, it was actually instant success, which was a big story for someone who had never coached with a program that hadn't won in a decade. Took a little longer, obviously, at South Carolina. You remember at one point that a couple things happened that you guys looked at each other and said, we're on the way?
Well, probably during the Candace Dupree era, after her freshman year. I mean, at South Carolina? At South Carolina? I would say when we signed Allisha Welch is when things seemed to take off. Not just from a basketball perspective, just from a chemistry, from a, it felt more like family. It felt like our culture was taking place, which would allow us to bring in better players, better character kids, and, once we got good kids in there that loved basketball, the sky was the limit. And it's opened up, so many options for us to do a lot of different things. And kids that believed in our vision. We finally got the majority of our players believing in our vision. And as any coach would tell you, you're going to be, whoever the majority of your team is. If the majority of your team is negative, you're going to have a negative team. If the majority of your team is positive and believes in your vision, that's who you're going to be. And, I think once Allisha Welch got to us, the majority of our team was believing in what our coaching staff was instilling in them.
Question here from Doug.
Dawn, a two-part question. Did Vic respond to your text? Did you have any interaction since last night you both won? And also, to expand a little bit on what you said before about the Tennessee and UConn's dominance for a while, how good is it for the sport seeing last year 2 new teams making the Final Four, 3 new teams making the Final Four, and this year two teams playing for a championship who've never won one before, and someone will be a champion for the first time tomorrow night.
Yeah, Vic did respond. He was up quite early today, so he responded pretty early. He did respond. And then, as far as looking back over the year, I think sometimes we lose sight of how good women's basketball is because of UConn's dominance. But you're slowly seeing it, by having two new teams in the Final Four last year. And, there's going to be a first-time, a national champion winner tomorrow night. So you're slowly seeing, how good women's basketball is. And it takes probably UConn losing for you to really appreciate what's taking place over the past few years. And I'm hoping that it continues and people can really see the layers that are beneath what UConn's been able to do over the past decade.
Question back here.
Hi, Jessica Hunt, NCAA.com. How special is it to you to be one of two teams representing your university this weekend, and then one of three teams representing the conference?
It feels great. It feels great. This is what we've worked so hard for. This is what we envision for our program. And I could probably speak for our Commissioner Sankey, in saying this is what he envisioned for the SEC, for us to be playing on the third weekend in the NCAA tournament, for our conference, which I think is, it's known as a football conference, but we're raising eyebrows as far as putting basketball into that same conversation. The SEC gives us an incredible platform from a television standpoint, from just our institutions are so supportive. We want all of our sports to be successful, and they give us a platform to do that. So we're not surprised by us being here. Probably the rest of the country is probably a little surprised by what's taking place by SEC teams.
Question right here.
Andy Lee, WTVA Television in Tupelo, Mississippi. I apologize if this has been asked, but what do you think the difference was in the first two matchups, and how hard will it be to win a third time?
The biggest difference is, the margin of error was small. The games could have gone either way. It took us making plays at the end. We just made, one or two more plays than they did in the fourth quarter of both games. And is it hard to play somebody three times? It is, but, for how the games played out, that could have gone either way. It's so close, that you can't, use that as bragging rights. And you're playing for a national championship. So you got to throw all of that out the door. They're not looking at, the SEC tournament championship game. They're not looking at the regular season game that we played. They're looking at how we are, because we're a little bit different than what we were 6 games ago. They're a lot different to me as far as scoring the basketball. They're scoring the basketball at a high rate. I think Vic's going to be who he's going to be from a defensive standpoint, so we know that part of it. It's going to come down to us, either one of us sustaining runs and making plays down the stretch.
Question, Mel?
Yeah, Dawn, I know you probably burned a bunch of cell phone batteries out of your many followers on Twitter last night. I know she checked in after you got the Olympic job. Did you hear from the UN ambassador yet in the last 24 hours?
No, I haven't heard from her yet. I hope she doesn't, because I don't want her to jinx us.
We'll take a couple final questions from our junior journalism workshop. Please raise your hand and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Antisha, and I'm from Girls Inc. STEM. I'm from Girls Inc. Eureka STEM program, and my question is, do you have pregame rituals? And if so, what are they? Or do you have a pregame routine?
Pre-game routine on the road. I don't really nap, but I do just kind of lie still and watch TV, especially if my nerves are bad. But other than that, not really I don't have a pre-game ritual.
And one final question.
Actually, I do my hair. I try to do my hair. That's a ritual. I don't know how that works out, though.
Hi, I'm Jalen, and I'm from the Girls Inc. Eureka program. I have a two-part question. What has been your most difficult moment while coaching, and how did you go about overcoming it? And then how have you used this to teach your players about overcoming challenges?
Wow, the most difficult. You know, I try not to. I always try to look at things positively, even when, even when there's a storm. When I was at South Carolina, we dealt with some transfers, and, you look at the amount of work you put into recruiting someone, and when you don't feel like they trust the process enough and give you a chance to show them that, this is the right place for them, that could seem like some difficulty. But again, just like, when you're dealing with adversity, you can't allow your other players to know, how it's really affecting you. You have to, turn the page and keep moving forward. And that's probably what we've done, time and time again, like we're dealing with an injury to one of our best players in the history of our program. We didn't allow our players to see it other than it being a positive and us moving forward, no matter how, no matter how hard it was for us to kind of hurdle that, while also being sympathetic to our injured player. So, you have to turn the page, and you have to, stay strong for your team, and your team will follow.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you. And South Carolina will be available in their locker room again at 11:20. Both coaches and student athletes will be available in their locker room at 11:20.